Bubbly Steve is available for pre-order at shopclownfish.com. That's shopclownfish.com. You've got less than a month to pre-order this 15-inch plushie. Check them out. Wow. Okay. Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. We're going to talk about DC Comics and the ever-changing mainstream comic book industry. Batman writer James Tynion is moving from DC to Substack. Substack, right? It's like a blogging platform. Well, they're doing comics now. And this is after we had some other creators jumping ship for ComiXology, Amazon, other deals, Netflix deals, all this jazz. It seems like if you're doing really, really well in comics right now, the thing to do is pull an image circa 1991-92 and go work on creator-owned projects, whether or not that's through an app or through a company like Amazon, or going out and crowdfunding. This is what you have to do. You have to jump ship. And I think the creators who are capable of jumping ship and everybody else, well, they're out there on GoFundMe looking to pay their rent. That's kind of the situation that comics creators find themselves in now. Either you're getting by, in the mainstream, or you're going out and starting to work on your own projects. And that's where the creativity is going to come from. Comics has been lacking in creativity for a long time because of corporate mandates and creators being afraid to create new characters for these companies because they know they're not going to get paid much. We're gonna talk about that. So before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We're over 229,000 subs. Thank you for the support. Geeky is sitting this one out. She worked pretty hard the last couple days, and she's not really interested in this topic. Even though we make comics, we don't make superhero comics. And, we've actually been fairly successful with our own stuff here and there. We'd like to ramp that up a little bit. But to follow up on a video we did a couple of days ago, if you're going to make comics, you want to make comics for yourself, or at least work with an independent publisher, I think, because Marvel and DC are getting close to the end of the line, right? Just to bring up Jim Lee in this damage control interview he did a week or so ago, that, DC was fine, everything's fine, Warner's not going to shut us down, it's all fine here, guys. Hey, why don't you do some creator-owned stuff for DC? Probably because they knew that Tynion was going to leave. They probably knew he was going to leave. So they're like, hey guys, it's okay over here. And I remember Marvel doing something similar. I don't remember exactly what the deal was, but I know when they had a lot of people jumping ship for Image back in the day, they were trying to wheel and deal to keep the remaining talent with them. But, it was kind of a burning building at that point. And Marvel back then was doing way better than they're doing now. There really is no advantage to working for Marvel or DC long term because the future is bleak overall. These characters get turned into $1 billion movies, if you're lucky, and you might get $5,000, for characters you created. I'm not talking work for hire. I'm talking about characters that you yourself created. You might get a $5,000 thank you from a company like Disney. We'll talk about that later. But here we go. Batman writer James Tynion is moving from DC to Substack. While the writer's creator-owned books will continue, he's leaving DC Comics and pivoting to the career-based subscription platform. I'm not even 100% sure what Substack is. It sounds like a cross between a blog and Patreon, and I always thought it was more of a tech thing. So if things at DC Comics seem a little different in the coming months, it's because James Tynion IV is leaving. He announced today he'll exit Batman after issue 117 in November and the Joker after issue 14 in April 2022. Where is he headed? Well, he'll be moving his talents exclusively to Substack with no immediate plans to write any other superhero comics in the near future. The announcement was made appropriately enough on his Substack, which will become a subscription-based site where Tynion will basically have complete creative control to do whatever the heck he wants. And that begins in September with the publication of Blue Book, an original UFO comic. Ooh, I like the sound of that. Blue Book. Yeah, I might check that out. Again, this is coming from Gizmodo IO9, formerly IO9, rolled into Gizmodo. It's a lot to digest, but the writer goes deep into all of it over on his Substack. Basically, he had to choose between a new contract from DC and another from Substack. The difference being Substack's was the best contract I've ever been given in a decade as a professional comic book writer. A grant from Substack to create a new slate of original comic book properties directly on their platform that my co-creators and I would own completely, with Substack taking none of the intellectual property rights or even the publishing rights. Yeah, so this is actually a good time to leave. Let's be honest. This is a really good time to leave because Warner Media is merging with Discovery. And despite Jim Lee and Daniel Cherry III saying everything is fine to The Hollywood Reporter, things aren't fine. They're really not fine over at DC. I mean, there was a massive round of layoffs last year, and we don't know what state DC is going to be in. In the previous video, we talked about how, Jason Kilar at Warner does seem to be a comic book fan, and he's kind of, keeping the flame alive, I guess, defending the continued existence of DC Comics as a comic book publisher when, frankly, all of these characters, all these IP could be jobbed out or licensed out to other comic book publishers, and they could wash their hands of it. And the same with Marvel Comics and Disney. So they were trying to do some damage control, and it's probably because they knew this was going to happen. And if one leaves, others are going to leave as well. And what we're going to be left with is a bunch of I Am Not Starfire. That's what DC is going to be left with. Massively downvoted trailer, by the way. People just are not excited about that comic at all. Other than to poke fun at it. So Substack will cost $7 a month with other options and discounts depending on how long you choose to buy in. The more you support this newsletter, the larger the budget I have to start building the next wave of big, cool ideas that I'm dying to try out. So yeah, it's basically a cross between Patreon and a blog. You're paying for blog content. In this case, you're paying for graphic novel content, comic book content. So there's no upper limit. He also writes outside of DC. He clarified on Twitter that none of his creator-owned work at other publishers will be affected by the Substack deal. The writer actually gave a breakdown. I launched my highest-selling original comic book series yet with The Nice House on the Lake at DC Black Label. News got out that my best-selling horror comic, Something is Killing the Children, is in development at Netflix with Mike Flanagan and Trevor Macy's Intrepid Pictures, and we announced that Boom Studios and I are launching the first spin-off title in the Slaughterverse with House of Slaughter. He's got something going on in Image, too. This is what's going to happen. Oh, he's also got a young adult series, because everybody does now, right? Everybody does now. So this is interesting. Of course, the whole creators going to Substack thing has been a rather controversial one over the past few months. Money problems, issues with who is on the platform and who isn't, and the list goes on and on. So this move might not end up being as clean and easy as it sounds. No, what's going to happen is other comic book professionals are going to piss and moan and make him feel incredibly guilty for looking out for himself and jumping ship while he can. This happened with Image Comics too. Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, and Jim Lee, they all left. They left Marvel at the height of their careers at Marvel, and they went and they formed Image, and they made even more money. And Todd McFarlane in particular is still reaping the rewards of that decision. Talked about him in the previous video. He took his comic book fame and he pushed it over into starting a toy company. He pushed it over into getting an animation deal. I love the Spawn animated series on HBO. I used to watch it all the time. And it's apparently there's another Spawn movie coming out one of these years. I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. Like, they got out while the getting was good, and they looked out for themselves, and they've been able to have careers for decades because of it. If Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, and Jim Lee had all stayed at Marvel doing page work, who knows? Maybe they would be on GoFundMe now looking to pay their bills because they didn't know when to get out. It's like the gambler, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them and know when to walk away and know when to run. And Tynion, he's running away from DC. And I think we're going to see a lot more Top shelf comic book creators leave because they have to. The direct market is not sustainable. It's gonna get worse as manga eats into its market share. You know, it's gonna get worse, guys. So you gotta look out for yourself. So I'm gonna wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we'll talk later.